So welcome back to Face, Anthony. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me again.
Okay, we're having a little bit of yeah, Andre is one of the best. So
Can you see my screen?
how has the natural world, pandemic wise, treating you and your family and people you know? And then how are things going on the battlefield? I know I've never traded a pandemic before, so I'm guessing you haven't either.
Yeah, this is actually the first time I've ever seen anything remotely similar to a recession or a pretty steep decline. I mean, the only other thing I've really ever traded through, I'm only 23, so I mean, I've been trading since about 2015 or so. It was the 2018 Fed lift kind of crash that happened there.
Yeah.
But this is far more steep and far more rapid, obviously. Yeah, my family's doing well. I'm actually in the Keys with them right now, living in separate places for the quarantine thing. My parents are a little older, so I don't want to expose them to anything.
Good,
Um,
good son.
it's pretty. Nothing's too crazy down here. I mean, things are obviously closed down, but nothing
Yeah.
is out of the ordinary besides
S-
that.
Yeah, I know. I think for guys that work remotely for years, and I know, you're pretty young, but we're kind of used to being on lockdown.
Yeah, I'm always on lockdown between Monday
Yeah,
and Thursday anyway.
except you know what the difference is? It's when it's our choice, it's different than when we don't have the option.
Exactly. Yeah, freedom's everything.
Yeah. So what are you thinking here? The big debate, Anthony, is the bottom in. Are we going to retest the low? Or are we going to make another low? Or are we
Mhm.
blown to new highs? Where do
So
you come down?
So yeah, I actually went extremely long between 2200 and 2300, and I'll tell you why actually.
Yeah, I'd like to know why. I had a
So
wedge, but go
I've
ahead.
been monitoring this like insanely, and I've been only monitoring really the U.S. cases since that's kind
Yeah,
of the focal point right now.
yeah,
But if you can take a look here at the total cases and similar as the total deaths, well, I think a lot of people just keep looking at the linear pattern, the
yeah,
linear chart, and that just, I mean, if you look at this, you just think, wow, everything's worse and worse.
yeah.
But then
Parabolic.
exactly, if you know math, then you understand that this pretty steady slope. It's slightly, I mean, it's obviously trending kind of consistently up here. You go to the logarithm pattern, and you see that right around where we bottomed was that inflection point, March 23rd, where there's like an indefinite slope right here, where the slope started going flattening out here. So that's actually where I decided. I said, okay, well, I think a lot of the mathematicians and people who really understand numbers are going to be looking here and saying, okay, well, it's obviously not speeding up as fast, and it's actually starting to flatten out on the logarithm curve. And you know that it'll flatten out here before it flattens out on the linear curve, and same here for depth. So that's why I decided. I mean, I went 2 times margin in my fund right around here, and that's worked out very well for me. I've been selling on
Yeah.
most of the rips. I'm back to no margin just because I feel like we've ran so much, and I don't want to give back a lot of those gains. And also,
What do you buy, Anthony? The things that got us there also led the rebound. You had
yeah, exactly.
Amazon
So
make new highs, and
yeah, actually,
semis have been hot. What sectors were you favoring?
so I decided that, well, I wasn't sure if we were gonna, anytime you make a bottom call, it's a little risky. You could go way lower, and that's
Yeah.
gonna wipe you out, especially if you go double margin. So I actually was buying a lot of the BlackRock ETFs,
Okay.
IGV, IHI's medical devices, and that's pretty much back at the highs. So I was doing long calls on a lot of those. I did long calls on a few specific stocks I like, Nvidia, Lam Research. I did some long calls on Google. All those paid out really, really well. I've actually exited a lot of those positions because premium was pretty much worthless for call upside at that point. Even with the VIX so high, if you went out a little further, so I usually buy long calls 3 to 12 months out.
Yeah, weren't
And I
they
also,
expensive?
yeah, they were definitely expensive. But I
Yeah.
usually don't pay more than $10 to $12 for a long call. Um,
Okay.
on that. So, Nvidia was at 200 or so, and I was buying the 300s for January, and I got those for about 15 or 13 or so, something like that. I also purchased a ton of SPY and QQQ calls for 2022, and those were $5-6, and they went to 25 as soon as this market bounced up like crazy.
Are you book? The quad. That's like more than a quadrupled. Do you book? Half when they've doubled for money management, and
Yeah,
you
so
have free trades.
Yeah, I'll roll up the strike. So I started with 300s for March 2022 on SPY, for example, and then S&P went up 15 or so, or SPY went up 15 or so. So then I'll roll to the 315s just to kind of lock in those gains. I'll get a few dollars each time that happens, and keep that locked in case we reverse. And I roll up to the same number of contracts, and I learned the strategy from my mentor. Who taught me how to trade. His name's Sam Perick. He runs a chat room service. Pretty good place. A lot of.
Is he on Twitter?
Yeah, actually, I'm in his chat room all day long, and he posts. This is his room. Posts nonstop commentary, news throughout the day. Here's a site if you'd like it. Yeah, Smarter Trading 4011.
All right.
And I'm in there all day as well, commenting, making posts. So yeah.
Cool. All right. So you have a relationship with someone who has a room. Let me ask you this. I never, I had technicals tell me about a low. I never would have thought about going to a logarithmic chart of cases, COVID. I happen to believe that there's going to be another wave this fall. So what's your outlook for the market from here? That was a great trades from there. Someone came with you and said, Anthony, I want to put $250,000 into your hedge fund here. How would you deploy it now?
Yeah. So what I'm doing now is, I'm pretty much, I'm up, 35% this year. So, I just
take the rest of the year off, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. So what I'm doing now is I'm trading, some weekly options and next week options, kind of more risky stuff, but very, 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 very small size, just with a portion of the profits, not even risking principal capital. And so I've actually moved out about 25% of those gains just to have it sit in my cash account, collect interest, just because there's no point to give back that big lead. So what I would be doing now is I would just be buying indices, and I've been writing covered calls on a lot of indices. I was long.
But I'm getting the vibe from you. It's not as clear what to do here as it was.
It isn't as clear. But what I do find interesting, and I'll show you here, is so the Russell is pretty much what got decimated during this time period.
Right.
Obviously, all the small cap stocks. But the S&P and the Nasdaq were dropping consistently here, but the RUT was holding. So that was another indicator and this is where we bottomed on all markets, like right around here. So that was another thing that told me that we were going to move higher.
That's an interesting tell. The weakness started to hold. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Especially since the RUT was down like 45%.
Okay, but you keep going backwards on me. So
yeah,
go ahead.
What I'm thinking now. So
all right.
So I don't really use a lot of technical. I did a thesis in college about bullish pennants, so that's the only reason I use them, because I find them to be way more accurate than most other technicals. But I know a lot of people use the 200-week moving average, and I was trying to time the bottom using the S&P's 200-week moving average, and that was wrong. But then I realized that we bottomed at the Nasdaq's 200-week moving average. So then I was thinking, okay, well, let's use the Nasdaq to determine where we're going to go from here. And so if you look at this chart here, you see, we've got 1, 2, 3 tops here, and we broke out already a week and a half ago on the Qs. And we bottomed before everything else on the Qs. And so now if you look at the S&P's chart, or SPY, just to make it simple, we are about a week and a half behind where the Qs were. And so I'm thinking we move higher. I think a lot of the fear with this virus is definitely canceled out, if not, negated by the Fed's actions in the markets. I'm obviously understanding that, there's a huge disconnect between reality and the market's movements recently. But that doesn't mean that it can't continue. And knowing that the Qs bottomed first, so they broke out first now. So I would think the market moves higher. I actually think that right here is, so 31.36 on the S&P, or about, 316 or so here on the SPY. is right where the Fed dropped their, they cut rates to pretty much zero at once and started doing
Okay.
and everything right
So
here.
about
This is pretty much where
3,100.
the first Fed bazooka came out. Yeah, 3136 to be exact.
Okay.
That's my target, and at that point, I'm going to be mostly cash. I mean, I don't mind missing 8% or so here. We've already rallied 25+%. So I mean, the money's been made, I think, to the upside. But there's a lot of things that can happen too. If the Fed drops another bazooka, I thought they were going to do one today. I guess they didn't yet, but it could come at any time. There's a possibility that we go back to highs quite quickly. I mean, we're kind of
Okay.
doing this sinusoidal wave moving right here. I think a lot of people are scared that the virus is going to come back in another wave, but if you look at a lot of the data, a lot of people who are running, analysis on the number of people actually infected, the number of antibody tests and everything, you'll notice that the actual death rates caused by COVID versus with COVID are severely different. Every death is being pretty much counted as a coronavirus death. Hospitals are getting 39K per coronavirus death, so that's a little bit of an incentive
God,
there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's a big incentive there for the numbers of deaths.
Do you think pharmacies pharmaceutical companies are, not looking after the public good with, what that hydrochloro, whatever it is a cheap drug that's been around for a long time, and instead they're discrediting it and going to the more expensive experimental antiviral? You think that's going on too?
I actually do. Yeah, I do believe that, because I even saw some studies that had 600 to 1,000 participants, and the numbers looked fantastic on using the hydrochloroquine and
Antibiotic.
Yeah,
because I actually know somebody that felt better a day after a doctor in the Caymans prescribed that to him. So it's not just hearsay. So everything's about money, isn't it, Anthony? So let's talk about real money. Any view on gold and what's happening here? It's
I mean, I definitely think gold's moving higher. I would be surprised to not see it go to all-time highs and break
1900,
break 1900, 2000. I mean, it's kind of telling you here that, I mean, we all, I think this is one trade that, a lot of the time when everyone piles in, I don't buy it, because sheep get slaughtered when everyone's in the same trade. But it actually looks like this is going to make a cup and handle and break out. I mean, I just use gilt as a proxy, but it's pretty much the same thing.
How about Bitcoin's been on fire?
Yeah, Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is pretty much the same thing as a gold play, in my opinion. I just think that everyone's going to things that have limited supply, because technically right now money, I mean, not technically, definitely money right now doesn't have a limited supply. We're printing like the ink's about to run out. So yeah, I mean, I think Bitcoin, this is just like, and I actually did my research paper on Bitcoin, and all I know is that as boring
There's your triangles.
As boring as my triangles are, they are far more effective than most other technical analysis things by 15,
I like it.
By 15
the way
or 20.
It's compressing in here. Look, on the verge of a breakout.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible we go back here and hit this lower leg, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it go to this 14,000 level, and and now we got institutions backing it, which honestly,
Paul Tudor Jones.
Yeah, Paul Tudor Jones. That actually makes me slightly more bearish than I was on it before.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that too.
It's like when
short-term top. Yeah.
Like when Trump tweets stock markets at all-time highs, you kind of want to sell stuff. So
how did you become so jaded so young?
Experience,
buddy? Huh?
A little bit of experience.
There's a big debate with what the Fed's doing about what's going to happen to the fate of the dollar. I'm not sure if you follow currency at all, but it's my belief it's kind of like the fulcrum that the whole wheel spins around. You have any views on currency?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the dollar is just doing some ridiculous stuff right now. I mean, it's going up when it shouldn't, going down rarely. I mean, I would think the dollar definitely is going to lose some value. I mean, we're just printing so much. I think it might take some time. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it squeezes a ton and then retraces later in 6 to 12 months once the stimulus really gets into the market, once the juice starts going. It takes some time for that stimulus to really hit the market in the way that everyone understands it and sees it happening. So, I wouldn't rule out it acting irrationally for, a few months, maybe 3 to 6 more months. But I would think the dollar goes a little lower.
Anything else you want to talk about, buddy?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great trades going on here. The last time I was on here, I think I said Amazon to 2,500 when it was 1,700. So you see a lot of these, triple top breakouts are happening here. 24.75, pretty close.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of conviction on Mealy since 550s, and that was just one of the biggest earnings movers.
What is it?
Sorry?
What is it?
Mercado Libre. It's the Latin American Shopify, basically. And they also do payment processing, similar to Square. So, so my thoughts is a lot of these cloud stocks, SaaS companies, they're benefiting hugely. So, I've been very long a lot of those. Some of my favorites, Mercado Libre, The Trade Desk, ServiceNow, Shopify. There's some really great companies. And I honestly don't think the pivot away from, working from home, automation, kind of that whole thing, I don't think that's really going to go away with the coronavirus easing up. So I actually think there's going to be a pretty decent rotation away from big tech, the Apples, the Amazons, the Googles, and focusing on this next wave of, big tech companies that will be in the future.
Okay, interesting. Anything on the cannabis stocks? They really didn't participate that greatly in this recovery, did they?
Yeah, my favorite cannabis place is definitely CGC. I think Aurora Cannabis is pretty much crap. A lot of the other ones just aren't even moving. Tilray is only good for short squeezes. But the cannabis sector is definitely lagging behind.
Why do you think that is?
I think people see that there's better plays. I think that, this has to do with people working, distribution, people going to the store and all that. So it's a retail business if you think about it, and I think that people are realizing that they don't want to be in, these beaten down names just yet. I started taking positions in Norwegian Cruise Lines and Dave & Buster's. Like these companies have gotten absolutely slaughtered, and United Airlines. And those are going to be very long-term holds. I don't think flying goes away. I don't think cruising goes away. Cruise lines are actually up 41% in their bookings for next year versus 9% estimate. So I think people are misinterpreting how quickly the economy is going to come back.
Yeah. So you think people are, just a little bit of history that in the last pandemic, we had a first wave. It kind of ended World War I. People were too sick to fight. And then we had Armistice Day. And then we had a second wave, which was worse than the first wave. So as we enter the fall flu season through the winter, you don't think there's going to be another wave, especially now that we're opening up now?
So I think two things are going to happen. I think that a lot of flus will be misconstrued, like just this typical flu infections will be misconstrued as coronavirus infections. Hopefully our testing is much more precise and faster by then. We're aiming to test 5 million people, hopefully that a day. Hopefully that happens. So I think that you're going to get a fake reported number and huge spikes. But, we've been testing about 12% higher each day. And the virus cases are stagnant in the US, 25 to 28 to 23,000. That wouldn't be happening if the virus was actually expanding. And that's why the logarithm chart's flattening out. So it is slowing down. And I've read a lot of reports in different countries in the world, some in San Francisco and New York, saying there's 13 to 24% of the actual population already infected. So, you're getting close to herd immunity just off of that.
I thought herd immunity was 50.
Yeah, 50% of, but 20% or so is, you're not crazy.
We're not even halfway there.
Not halfway there, but we were thinking that it's more like 1% of the population was infected.
Okay.
I think it's more of an interpretation thing. And even at 20%, it definitely slows itself down. And not to mention that we've confirmed now that you really can't get it twice from South Korea. And South Korea is very on top of their stuff in terms of their testing and their flattening of the curve and their research and pathogens and such. So So I mean, I think a second wave could come out and hit the markets, but I think that the bounce from that will be even faster than the first
What a
bounce.
great way to end the week after that kind of NFP number. Some very optimistic, and I take what you say seriously, Anthony. You have credibility with me, and I know you want to make the open, so I'm going to wrap it here. And thank you again for coming here and sharing some of your ideas and your views on what's happening in the biological world too.
Thank you very much, Dale. Happy to be here anytime.
Okay, buddy.
All right,
That's a
have a
wrap,
good one.
everybody.
Thank you.
So have a great weekend, Anthony, and everyone else. You're very welcome. Remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. You're welcome, DJ, Brock, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.
Perfect.
Adios.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.